The Unshakable Retirement, building the 5 assets that guarantee you never run out of money. Well, I've been thinking a lot about retirement lately. Not my own retirement. I'm 94 years old and have no plans to retire, but retirement in general. How people prepare for it, how they fund it, what they do right, and where they go catastrophically wrong. After nearly a century of observing markets, economies, and countless individuals, I've noticed something profoundly troubling. Most people approach retirement completely backwards. They follow a broken script. Work for 40 years, save some money in a 401k or IRA, cross their fingers, and hope it's enough. They don't have a real plan. They don't understand the specific assets they need. They just hope that the vague notion of savings will magically transform into a sustainable income for 30 years. But hope isn't a strategy. It's a prayer. And when you're 65 years old and finally open your financial statements with clear eyes, only to realize the numbers don't add up, it's too late to fix it. You've run out of time. You've run out of the compounding years that are the jet fuel of wealth building. You're stuck, forced to work indefinitely or to accept a retirement of relentless anxiety and penny pinching. This doesn't have to be your story. Retirement shouldn't be a desperate gamble. It should be the deliberate, confident culmination of a lifetime of intelligent building. The difference lies in what you build, not just how much you save. So today, I want to talk plainly about the 5 assets you must build before you retire. Not should consider, not might want to look into, must. These are not speculative bets or complicated financial products. They are foundational, timeless, and proven. They are the pillars that, when constructed together, create a retirement structure that can withstand market storms, inflationary hurricanes, and the long, quiet decades of spending. These assets generate income, protect your purchasing power, and allow you to sleep soundly, knowing your tomorrows are secure. Let's begin with the cornerstone, the first and most critical asset for any sustainable retirement. Asset number 1, the perpetual income engine, a portfolio of dividend growth stocks. Forget everything you've heard about bonds being the safe retirement investment. For the first half of your life, bonds might play a role in preserving capital. But for the second half of your life, your retirement, your primary concern is not just preservation, but reliable and growing income. The foundation for that is not found in the fixed coupons of bonds, but in the dynamic, growing dividends of world-class businesses. When you retire, you switch from being an accumulator to a distributor. You need your investments to pay you a regular paycheck. There are only 2 fundamental ways to get cash from an investment portfolio. Sell pieces of it, capital, this is liquidation, you're eating your seed corn, or collect the income it produces, dividends or rent. This is harvesting the fruit while leaving the tree intact. Which would you rather do? The answer is obvious. Selling shares to fund retirement puts you on a countdown clock. Every market downturn accelerates that clock, forcing you to sell more shares at depressed prices to get the same amount of cash, a devastating sequence known as sequence of returns risk. Eventually, if you live long enough, you risk depletion. You can outlive your money. Dividends solve this problem elegantly. When you own shares in a company that pays a dividend, you own a tiny slice of a real business. That business earns profits, and it sends a portion of those profits directly to you, the owner, every quarter. You don't have to sell anything. The shares remain in your account, whole and intact. The income just appears. But not all dividends are created equal. The magic isn't in the dividend itself, it's in the dividend growth. You must focus on companies with the financial fortitude, competitive dominance, and shareholder-friendly culture to increase that dividend payment every single year through recessions and bull markets alike. Why dividend growth is non-negotiable? The math of comfort. Let's move from theory to concrete numbers because this is where the power becomes undeniable. Imagine you retire at 65 with $1 million invested in a diversified portfolio of best-in-class dividend growth stocks. Let's assume the portfolio yields 3% at the start. That's $30,000 in annual dividend income on day one of retirement. If that were static, it would be underwhelming, but it's not static. These are dividend growth stocks. Let's assume the companies, on average, increase their dividends by 7% per year, a conservative estimate for a quality portfolio that includes the likes of Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, and NextEra Energy. Watch what happens to your income over a 30-year retirement without you ever selling a single share or adding another dollar. Year 1, $30,000. Year 5, around $42,000. Year 10, around $59,000. Year 15, around $83,000. Year 20, around $116,000. Year 25, around $163,000. Year 30, around $228,000. Do you see it? Your income more than quadruples in 20 years and increases nearly eightfold over 30 years. This is the antidote to inflation. While Social Security increases might lag the real cost of living, and while bond coupons are fixed, your dividend income is surging ahead. In the later years of retirement, when healthcare costs often rise, your income is at its highest point. Meanwhile, what about your principal? That $1 million is still there, invested in those same companies. In fact, because you own shares in thriving businesses, that principal has likely grown substantially over 3 decades as well. It can be passed on. The dividends were pure, spendable income generated from the profits of enterprises you had the wisdom to own. Building this engine, quality over everything. This is not a strategy of picking the highest yield you can find. A high yield is often a sign of distress. A company's share price has collapsed because its business is in trouble, putting the dividend itself at risk. You are not a yield chaser. You are a quality chaser. The companies you want share these traits: a wide moat, a durable competitive advantage, brand, scale, patents, regulatory licenses that protect profits, a fortress balance sheet, low debt and ample cash flow to endure economic winters, a long history, not just of paying dividends, but of raising them for 10, 20, 25 plus years consecutively. These are the dividend aristocrats and dividend kings. Essential products or services. They sell things people need in good times and bad: healthcare, consumer staples, utilities, critical infrastructure. Your goal is to build the diversified collection of 15 to 25 such companies across different sectors. You buy them methodically over time. You reinvest the dividends during your accumulation years to supercharge growth. And then, when you retire, you simply stop reinvesting and let the cash flow to you. This portfolio is your financial heart. It pumps out a growing stream of life-giving income for as long as you live. It is the first and most important asset you must build. Asset number 2, the low-cost S&P 500 Index Fund, the Never Touch Fund. Now, you might be thinking, Warren, you just spent 1,000 words convincing me dividend stocks are the answer. Why do I need something else? Because a secure retirement is built on redundancy and multiple lines of defense. Your dividend portfolio is your active income engine, but even the finest engine benefits from a reserve tank and a backup system. That's what the S&P 500 Index Fund is. Here's the critical distinction in function. Dividend portfolio, your checking account, this is for income. You will depend on this cash flow for your regular living expenses. S&P 500 Index Fund, your savings account, growth vault, this is for long-term growth and catastrophic reserve. You do not touch this fund in normal retirement. You let it compound untouched for decades.
The why, protection against the unknown. Why is this separate growth fund so essential? 3 reasons. Longevity insurance. You might live to 95 or 100. A 35-year retirement is a real possibility. Your dividend income, while growing, is tethered to the specific companies you own. The S&P 500 fund represents a bet on the long-term, broad-based growth of the American economy itself. It is your purest play on innovation and aggregate corporate profit growth over the very long term. It ensures part of your wealth is participating in the next 50 years of progress, not just the dividends from the companies you picked 20 years ago. Sequence of returns reserve. What if you retire and a brutal market strikes immediately? Even the best dividend stocks can see their share prices fall, and in a worst-case scenario,
you now own an asset with $400,000 in equity, $600K value minus $200K loan, that spins off over $20,000 per year in reliable, inflation-adjusted income. Do this with 2 or 3 properties, and you've built a formidable pension-like income stream that is largely independent of the stock market. The REIT alternative, real estate without the toilet clogs. I understand not everyone has the temperament or desire to be a landlord. It is work. There are phone calls at inconvenient times, maintenance issues, and tenant turnovers. There is a brilliant alternative, real estate investment trusts, REITs. A REIT is a company that owns and often operates income-producing real estate, apartment complexes, shopping malls, hospitals, cell towers, warehouses. By law, they must pay out at least 90% of their taxable income as dividends to shareholders. Investing in a REIT, or a REIT index fund, gives you immediate diversification across many properties and sectors. You get a high dividend yield, often 3 to 5% or more, which also tends to grow, and you get professional management. You click a button to buy shares and collect the dividends. No midnight plumbing emergencies. Whether through direct ownership or REITs, real estate serves a critical role. It diversifies your income sources and provides a direct hedge against inflation through rising rents. It is the third essential pillar. Asset number 4, the purchasing power shield. Treasury inflation-protected securities, TIPS. We've covered growing income, dividends, long-term growth, index funds, and inflation-linked cash flow, real estate. Now we must address defense. Retirement's most insidious enemy isn't a market crash. Those are visible and dramatic. The true enemy is silent and gradual, inflation. Inflation is the thief of fixed income. It erodes the purchasing power of every dollar you've saved. At a modest 3% annual inflation, the value of your money is cut in half in about 24 years. At 5%, it's halved in roughly 14 years. If you retire on a fixed income of $60,000, in 20 years of 3% inflation, it will feel like living on only $33,000 today. That is a recipe for a desperate old age. This is why conventional bonds, which pay a fixed coupon, are often a terrible retirement holding in inflationary periods. They are certificates of confiscation, locking in a return that can easily become negative in real terms after taxes and inflation. Enter TIPS, the designed defender. Treasury inflation-protected securities are U.S. government bonds specifically engineered to solve this problem. Here's how they work. The principal value of a TIPS bond adjusts up or down monthly based on the Consumer Price Index, CPI. The bond pays a fixed interest rate, but that rate is applied to the inflation-adjusted principal. At maturity, you are paid the greater of the adjusted principal or the original principal. Example, you buy $10,000 of TIPS with a 1% interest rate. Inflation is 4% that year. Your principal adjusts to $10,400. Your 1% interest is paid on $10,400, or $104.
Your total return is the inflation adjustment, $400, plus the interest, $104, equals $504, or a 5.04% nominal return, preserving your real purchasing power. The role of tips in your portfolio. Tips are not for growth. They are for capital preservation and purchasing power certainty. You allocate a portion of your portfolio to tips to create an inflation-proof floor. This is the portion of your money that you absolutely positively cannot afford to lose to inflation. A common strategy is to build a tips ladder, buying tips that mature in successive years to provide a known real dollar income stream for a set period, an 18 to 15-year period, for example, the first 10 to 15 years of retirement. This eliminates worry about market fluctuations for that segment of your needs. For most retirees, an allocation of 5 to 15% of their investment portfolio to tips or Series I savings bonds, which work similarly, is prudent. It's not the star of the show, but it is the reliable anchor that keeps the entire ship stable in inflationary seas. It is the asset that lets you say, no matter what happens to prices, this portion of my wealth is safe. Asset number 5, the foundation of low overhead, a paid-off home. This final asset is different. It's not an investment that trades on an exchange or produces a yield. It is perhaps the most powerful liability eliminator you can ever own. A paid-off primary residence before retirement is not an investment. It is a radical reduction in your cost of living. In retirement, your success is determined by two variables: the income you have and the expenses you must cover. Most people focus exclusively on the first variable. The brilliant move is to attack the second. Housing is typically the largest single expense in a household budget. A mortgage or rent payment can consume 25 to 35% of a retiree's income. Eliminate that, and you have altered the retirement math profoundly. The math of freedom. Consider two couples, both needing $60,000 per year after tax to retire comfortably. Couple A, with a mortgage, has a $2,000 a month mortgage payment, $24,000 per year. Their portfolio must generate $60,000 after paying the mortgage. They need a portfolio large enough to safely produce $84,000 of pre-tax income. Couple B, paid-off home, has only property taxes and insurance, totaling $6,000 per year. Their portfolio only needs to generate $60,000 to cover all expenses, including housing. Couple B needs a portfolio 40% smaller than Couple A to achieve the same standard of living. Or with the same portfolio, Couple B has a massive buffer for travel, healthcare, or gifts. Beyond the math, the psychological security. The value of a paid-off home transcends spreadsheets. It provides unshakable security. No bank can foreclose. It is yours. This psychological peace is invaluable, especially in market downturns when you might otherwise panic about making payments. Flexibility. If your investments have a bad year, you can easily cut back on discretionary spending because your core shelter cost is minimal. A legacy asset. It is a tangible, often appreciating asset you can pass on. How to get there? A lifetime strategy. This asset takes a lifetime of intentional choice. Buy less house. Your home is not your piggy bank or status symbol. Buy a comfortable, functional home well below what you're approved for. Use a 15-year mortgage. The forced discipline builds equity twice as fast as a 30-year loan. Make extra payments. Treat any windfall, bonus, tax refund, or inheritance as a mortgage preparation tool. The final push. If you're approaching retirement with a remaining mortgage, make it eliminating it your absolute top financial priority, even if it means working an extra year or two. The freedom you buy is far more worth than the potential foregone investment returns on that money. Your paid-off home is the foundation upon which the other 5 financial assets rest. It lowers the drawbridge, dramatically reducing the height of the wall your investment income must scale. Synthesis: building your unshakable fortress. Individually, each of these 5 assets is powerful. Together, they form an interlocking, resilient system. They protect each other's weaknesses and amplify each other's strengths. This is the architecture of a worry-free retirement. Let's see how they work as a team against common retirement risks. Risk: market crash, stocks down 40%. Response: your dividend income from quality companies likely continues, maybe even grows. Your real estate rent checks keep coming. You do not touch your S&P 500 index fund. You let it recover. Your low expenses from your paid-off home mean you don't need to sell distressed assets. The system holds. Risk: high inflation, prices rising 7%. Response: your dividends are growing, often faster than inflation. Your real estate rents are rising with the market. Your TIPS principal and interest are adjusting upward automatically. Your paid-off home locks in your largest expense. You are protected on multiple fronts. Longevity: living to 100 years. Your dividend income has grown for 35 years, likely now several times its starting amount. Your untouched S&P 500 index fund has compounded for 35 years into a colossal sum. You are not out of money, you are wealthier than ever. Unexpected major expense: $80,000 roof or replacement. You have multiple options without crippling your income. Use the S&P 500 fund, its purpose as a reserve, tap a HELOC on your paid-off home, or use cash flow from real estate. You aren't forced to sell your dividend shares. A sample blueprint allocation for a 10-year retirement horizon. This is a framework, not personalized